Part 18. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 171. In a tavern on an unknown island. Countless chaotic sounds came out of it, and it looked very lively, so that passers-by couldn't help but look sideways. Hey, have you heard? The Navy's fearsome demon-slaying order is a waste this time. One of the pirates laughed with a wine glass in his hand. They are not powerful pirates, and when they encounter the Navy in the sea, they can only run away with their tails between their legs. Now I am very happy to hear that the Navy has suffered such a big loss. Ha ha ha, brother, your news is long outdated. On a table not far away, another pirate laughed. Didn't you notice that you didn't encounter the Navy very little today? Hearing you say that, it seems to be true. The other pirate nodded thoughtfully. In the past, they often encountered the Navy, but today they did sail for half a day without seeing the shadow of the Navy. That's because I was directly copied from my hometown, ha ha ha. With that, the pirate laughed heartily and drank the bowl of wine in his hand. Hey, what did you say about copying my hometown? It came to an abrupt end at a critical time, which was really uncomfortable to listen to, and someone couldn't help but ask. I heard that the headquarters of the Navy have been razed to the ground, and those navies are now too busy to take care of themselves. Brothers, the opportunity to make a fortune has arrived. Boom. Just when the pirates were enthusiastic, the door of the tavern was pushed open. A group of pirates walked in. The whole body still exudes a violent aura. The smell of gun smoke filled the air. It's clear that the Great War has just been experienced. Seeing this scene, the entire tavern suddenly became silent. Phew. The head of the pirates sat down on the stool and took a sip, his face unsettled. I don't know which bastard said that the strength of the Navy has been greatly reduced, and I want to get a vote. As a result, my mother just walked halfway and ran into the Navy. If you let Lao Tzu know who made the rumor, throw it directly into the sea to feed the fish. Angry voices echoed through the tavern. The eyes of everyone next to him couldn't help but look at the pirate who was still clamoring to make a fortune before being watched by so many people, which pirate was instantly stunned. Actually, what the pirates discussed before was not wrong. The destruction of the Navy headquarters was indeed a great blow to the Navy and unimaginable losses. But as a marshal, he knew that now was not the time to bask in grief. So the order was given immediately. Let the Navy of the Navy branch strengthen patrols of the surrounding waters. In this difficult time for the Navy, pirates must not be allowed to take advantage of it. As long as this period of time is past, everything will return to normal order. Similar rhetoric quickly spread across the seas until the world government issued an announcement. The whole sea suddenly boiled. Only when the world government believes that the island has the same power as it does will send a message of independence. An announcement by the world government is not a notice, but a reverence. Think about it, what kind of forces can make the world government compromise? What kind of power can make the world government issue such a statement that invisibly devalues itself? Only the existence of a transcendent world government can possess such power. As soon as the announcement was issued, the merchants who had left before instantly rushed back again. In just a few hours, Arthur Island was once again prosperous. Even more prosperous than before. And in the middle of the island in a private estate. Arthur sat on the couch and looked at the screens in front of him. What was shown above made Arthur nod in satisfaction. The benefits of having the world government make a proclamation are immediately apparent. Otherwise, it will take a long time to get to this level. After all, the years when the world government ruled the seas left a very deep prestige on everyone. Captain, you seem to be very happy today. Rita returned to the manor and put on her charming maid costume again. With a smile on his face, he brought a cup of tea to Arthur. Rita. Arthur smiled and gently pulled Rita over. He buried his head in the mountains and took a deep breath. The series of events that happened before, although it was not long, seemed to have passed a long time. Now it's finally free. This is the life Arthur wants. He, Captain, you're really not ashamed. Kiana leaned in from behind and put her arms around Arthur's neck. The smile on her face is very cute. Little one, are you going to sneak attack too? On the other side, Seal walked over quietly. No, Seal just wanted to be by the captain's side. With a faint smile on her face, Seal sat quietly next to Arthur. Oh, you guys. Mei Yi walked over and looked left and right. Well, there's really no place left or right. Could this be the legendary early bird that eats worms? Mei Yi seems to have realized a very profound truth. Captain, although you are very strong now, you must not fall behind in the cultivation of martial arts for a single day. Walking is like sailing against the current, and if you don't advance, you will retreat. The sound of chirping next to him made Fu Hua, who was sitting quietly on the side, open his eyes. Well, yes, it's true that you can't leave a day behind. Arthur nodded earnestly. It's good that the captain understands. Fu Hua saw that Arthur seemed to have come to his senses, and nodded with relief. But the next scene made Fu Hua's face very exciting. I saw Arthur standing up with Rita in his arms and striding upstairs. Captain, you're really anxious. How can it be? I am listening to Fu Hua's teachings, not a day is left behind, as if there was no day yesterday, and I still have to make up for it today. Two voices came into Fu Hua's ears one after another, making her face change back and forth as if she had opened a dye shop. Obviously, what she said didn't mean that. Why did she understand that meaning? It's disgusting. Don't get angry, you'll get used to it slowly. Seeing Fu Hua's clenched fists, Mei Yi gently comforted. In this regard, Fu Hua could only let go of his fist decadently. What could she do? Will she just rush forward? It is estimated that Arthur is waiting for her to throw herself into the net, and it will be too late to cry by then. It was just after dusk that Arthur and Rita reappeared in front of everyone. However, there is a small figure next to the two. Sister Brnya, what's wrong with you? Seal's eyes widened, and she looked at Brnya incredulously. No wonder I didn't see Brnya all afternoon, it turned out to be. Brnya, go steal food again without a sound. The scene was so obvious that Kiana pinched Brenya's cheek with a look of dissatisfaction. Brenya just went to check the captain's physical condition and collect data. Brenya's face was not red, and she bypassed Kiana and sat on the sofa. What data? There are good things to share. The others gathered around Brenya with great interest to see what data Arthur could collect. 2 days later, in the early morning. When Arthur woke up, he shook his head helplessly and recovered her with the quilt that Kiana had kicked off. Captain, are you awake? Mei Yi's voice rang in her ears. Well, it's still early, let's go back to sleep a little longer. No need, Captain. Mei Yi sat up and rubbed her eyes, her long hair falling down her back like a waterfall. The lazy stretched a lazy waist, making the trembling one full of elasticity. Good morning, Captain. Mei Yi went to prepare breakfast first. Seeing Arthur staring at him intently, Mei smiled softly. Leaned down and tapped Arthur's forehead lightly, then stood up. After tidying up, he walked out of the door gently. It's really a little goblin that never gets tired of watching. Arthur smiled and muttered to himself, and with a stroke of the void, the system interface appeared in front of him. After the accumulation of this period of time, it has been possible to 10 consecutive again. Without too much hesitation, click 10 in a row. 10 rays of light flashed in front of him in succession. It's a big harvest this time. I thought it would take 2 or 3 times to get together the character shards, but now it's just enough. Open the Valkyrie cabin and find Fu Hua. 30/30ths, upgradable. Click promote. The A rank Valkyrie immediately became the S rank Valkyrie. Unlock another form at the same time. Blazing. Finally finished writing that large paragraph, and you can come to some favorite plots. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, return captain. Chapter 172. Chirp. In the early morning, the sun broke free from the darkness, and the light gradually sprinkled onto the earth. A loud phoenix chirp pierced the sky. Inside the villa, in Fu Hua's room. Feeling the rushing power in his body, the flashy man lying on the bed instantly opened his eyes. Flames erupted from all around her, slowly levitating her body into the air. The clothes on his body were scattered in the midst of the flames. At this moment, Arthur, who felt the fluctuation of power, instantly slammed open the door and rushed in. Suddenly, his eyes widened and he looked up. A beautiful scenery appears in front of you. In mid-air, Fu Hua seemed to be receiving a baptism of power, and although he saw Arthur breaking in, he couldn't make any moves. His arms were slightly open, and flames swirled around him. Glance. Between the flames, a Suzaku figure was formed. A loud cry came out, and the figure gradually grew larger as it circled, enveloping Fu Hua's body. What's going on? Such a big movement also made Rita come over. It's not a big deal, Fu Hua is gaining new strength. Arthur shook his head, signaling Rita not to worry, then frowned suspiciously. Rita, I found a problem. Arthur's eyes were puzzled. What's wrong, Captain, do you have any doubts? Rita asked, puzzled. I found you all bare. Branya, Seal, Kiana, Mei is enough, Rita, you and Bella and Fu Hua are the same. At first, Rita didn't understand what Arthur meant. But the clever Rita was quick to react. Doesn't the captain like it? Or is it a hint at our age? But the captain even knows Fu Hua's, and he starts quickly. Rita had a faint smile on her face. Actually, I haven't done it yet, but I've just seen it. Arthur shook his head a little embarrassed. I see, then Rita wishes the captain success. In mid-air, flames enveloped Fu Hua's entire body. After a few minutes, the burning flames gradually decreased. A figure emerged from the flames. White-haired and red-eyed, covered in fire, walking in white clouds. All the remaining flames around him dissipated, and Fu Hua slowly descended from mid-air. Stood in front of Arthur. Captain, you saw it just now. Although it was an inquiring tone, there was a positive glint in his eyes. Well, the little ones are cute. Arthur nodded cheerfully. It all comes from his confidence in his own strength. Captain, it's... Hearing Arthur's unhesitating answer, Fu Hua clenched his fists, and a flush appeared on his cheeks because of anger. A punch was mercilessly directed towards Arthur. Faced with a punch mixed with faint flames, Arthur clenched his right hand in his hand. Alas, it's going to start again. Captain, you're busy first, Rita is going to make breakfast. Rita knew that she would not be able to stop for a while, so she slipped away after saying a word. Can't wait? Fu Hua. Arthur said and squeezed his palm gently. Well, yes, like cheese. I just don't know if it will taste as soft as cheese. Arthur said with a slam of force. Fu Hua only felt a majestic force pulling her body. I couldn't help but rush forward. Seeing that he was about to fall into Arthur's arms with open arms. The light on his feet barely stopped his figure. It's pretty tenacious. The strength is really much higher than before. Arthur was very clear about Fu Hua's power before, but now he doesn't know how many times it has increased. Then asked the captain to try Fu Hua's enhanced strength. Fu Hua said as another fist blasted away. Arthur took a step back, a faint smile on his face. Okay, then let me get a good feel for how strong you are now. If you lose, you'll be punished. Seeing Arthur's smiling face, Fu Hua was really angry. Beat me first. With that, a leg whip flicked over. Then I'll take you as a promise. Feeling the sharp whip of his legs, Arthur dodged sideways while sneaking a glance. It's a shame that it's safety pants. What, Captain, you? At this moment, Fu Hua was really about to break out. Anger gave her strength. The two immediately began an offensive and defensive battle in the room. However, most of them are Fu Hua attacking, and Arthur is defending. Obviously, the bedroom space was a little small, and Arthur slowly retreated into the living room. The thud of fists colliding echoed around. For a while, the two were inseparable. Slowly, everyone woke up. You're really energetic, so energetic early in the morning. Kiana yawned and walked out with her hair messy. Glancing at the two people fighting in the living room, he immediately turned around and went to wash. The morning on Arthur's side was full of energy, while at the same time it was lifeless at the Navy headquarters. The headquarters of the Navy was destroyed, and now the main thing is to rebuild. Fortunately, the world government has given sufficient support. With the investment of a large amount of manpower and material resources, it is believed that it will not be long before the Navy headquarters will regain its former majesty. A makeshift conference room. Many of the navies sat there with very low expressions. And the Port Kong, who was sitting at the front, also sighed softly when he saw this scene. It's normal for people to have this kind of reaction. Basking in grief is not going on. The heavy words made the navies on both sides raise their heads. Marshal Kong, we have betrayed your trust. Sengoku stood up from his seat with a look of grief on his face. Many of my brothers died because of him, and I still blame myself to this day. It's not your fault, it's our opponent who is too strong. But now we don't have to think about that anymore. Arthur's Island declared its independence, and all actions were not under their turn to be under the control of the Navy. Even the bounty order was revoked. That is, all of Arthur's activities after that, their Navy will not participate. It's just that if you don't actively participate, if you are passive, there is no way to do it. This time we have gathered everyone to announce something. Waiting until everyone's eyes were on him, Ganga Khan continued. Starting today, I will resign from the post of Admiral. What, Marshal Sara? The words of the steel bones made everyone stunned. Marshal Kong, if it's because of this incident, I'm willing to take full responsibility. Sengoku suddenly stood up from his seat, looking a little excited. Don't worry so much, I'm not done yet. Cyborg shook his head and continued. I resigned from the post of Admiral because I wanted to be promoted to the rank of Commander-in-Chief of the world government. Hearing this, everyone's expressions also relaxed. It turned out to be a promotion. And this position of Admiral, I will leave it to you, Sengoku. Marshal Kong, I. Sengoku wanted to refuse, but was stopped by Cyborg Yuo. Nowadays, the Navy is in the most critical moment, and you have to lead everyone out of this difficulty, and you have a great responsibility that cannot be shirked. The tone is light, but heavy as Tarzan. Sengoku nodded vigorously. Marshal Kong, rest assured, I will definitely do my best. Good. Cyborg nodded in satisfaction. In addition to this, Lieutenant General Polusalino, promoted to General. Lieutenant General Sakaski, promoted to General. Lieutenant General Kuzan, promoted to General. I hope you all work together in the days to come. This day is also a very important day for the Navy. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 173. The two figures in the training room flew up and down, and the dull sound of fists and feet adding to each other was endless. Beside it, several figures stood. There was some helplessness in the look of watching the play. They've been here for a few days. Kiana's expression looked a little decadent, unable to lift her spirits. It's been 3 days. Mei Yi thought for a while and said slowly. It's been 3 days, every day, and they're not tired. Kiana pursed her lips as she spoke. I have less time to play with her. Since Fu Hua was promoted to the S rank, this manor has suddenly become much more lively. Although the more you fight, the more you lose, the more you lose, the more courageous. Every morning, Fu Hua would invite Arthur to the training room. Once you start working, most of the day's work will be non-stop. It's time to stop estimating the time. Rita said softly and turned to leave. It's time to eat right away, so you have to be prepared. And in the center of the training room, watching Fu Hua's stormy attack, Arthur also saw the move. Boom. Haven't you deflated yet? It's been so many days. Grabbing Fu Hua's attack again, Arthur smiled. Be a captain, you just have to forget everything you shouldn't know. Fu Hua struggled as she spoke, but Arthur's hands squeezed her arms like steel tongs. I couldn't break free in the slightest. When you say that, I remember. Arthur raised his eyebrows, a look of memory in his eyes. I remember saying that day that if you lose, you will be punished. In the past few days, I have lost several times. Rest assured, the punishment only needs to be done once. As the smile on Arthur's lips became more and more presumptuous, a bad feeling suddenly came to his heart. What are you going to do? Fu Hua said as he struggled to break free from Arthur's imprisoned arms. Don't worry, it won't hurt. Arthur lifted his hands violently, and Fu Hua suddenly felt his body rise into the air. When he reacted again, he was already in Princess Arthur's arms. Quick, let go of me. There were still people watching next to him, and Fu Hua felt a little unbearable on his face. Tumbling like a little snake. But the originally powerful force is now weak. As if he was not resisting, but wanting to resist and welcome. Captain, can you watch from the sidelines? Hearing Arthur's words, Kiana instantly came to her senses. Suddenly approached Arthur, looking at Fu Hua with big eyes glowing. Well, onlookers. No, absolutely not. Seeing Arthur's hesitant appearance as if he wanted to agree, Fu Hua suddenly became anxious. After this period of time together, Fu Hua knew very well what the so-called punishment was. It's certainly not a serious punishment. If someone is watching, it is better to kill her. Look, none of the parties agree with you to watch. Arthur shrugged his shoulders helplessly, and then looked down at Fu Hua with a smile on his face. Fu Hua, since you refused to watch just now, that means you agree to accept the punishment. That's great, I've never liked forcing people. Without further ado, let's get started. Arthur said and rushed out of the training room in an instant with Fu Hua in his arms, and disappeared in front of everyone's eyes with a puff of smoke. This made Fu Hua confused for a while, she obviously didn't think like that. Alas, how so, it's really stingy. Seeing Arthur's disappearing back in an instant, Kiana muttered dissatisfiedly. In fact, Brnya is also very concerned about the captain's punishment. Hearing Brenya's words, Kiana seemed to think of something, and said mysteriously with a mysterious expression. Brenya, aren't you a hacker? How about we take a sneak peek? Although there are no cameras in the rooms in this manner, Brenya still has her own way, but if the captain finds out? Brenya hesitated. It's okay, Miss Ben will take it all in. Kiana patted her chest happily. That's good. A shallow smile appeared on Brenya's lips. It seemed to be waiting for Kiana to answer. In the living room, many people gathered around Brenya, staring at the big screen in front of them. Okay, no, it's been a few minutes, and I guess it's already started. Seeing that the screen had not yet appeared, Kiana was a little anxious. If you want to see clearly, you have to adjust the data, and it's good right away. Brynja said, and the data stream that flashed back and forth in front of her on the screen disappeared in an instant. All right, let's take off. On the table next to it, a small drone flew up. The picture on the computer also changes as the drone moves. The drone can be seen flying out of the manor and slowly towards the second floor. There you have. Although there is only a small gap, under Brynja's adjustment, the picture is very clear. Ah, Fu Hua is really pitiful, they are all hanged. Kiana blinked, leaned forward curiously, and stared straight at the light curtain in front of her. What's the captain smearing on his hands? Seal saw Arthur pour some clear liquid in his hand, and couldn't help but mumble curiously. I think it has a special effect. For Arthur's strange props, Rita is no longer surprised. Oh, really, it can corrode clothes? Kiana's eyes widened as she watched the magical scene in front of her. Captain is really, there are always some strange ideas. Mei Yi said softly, writhing unconsciously. And in the picture, Fu Hua's hands were held high, and the length of the rope could only allow her to barely lift her toes to touch the ground. This is very physically demanding. Is that what you call punishment? Feeling the breeze passing through his body, Fu Hua bit his lip tightly, and his beautiful eyes had an angry look. It's just the beginning, don't rush. Although the sound is very soft, the drone can already pick up it slightly, coming from the speakers of the computer. Captains are always like that. You can't get to the point without begging for mercy yourself. It's a love-hate fetish. Seeing Arthur's careful exploration without hurry, Mei Yi knew what their captain was thinking, and looked at Fu Hua with a hint of pity in his eyes, and couldn't help but shake his head. Fu Hua is going to be unlucky. AHH. Suddenly, Kiana screamed, her fingers trembling as she pointed to the screen in front of her. I. On the screen, huge eyes were staring at them all the time. Oops, found out. Brynja secretly said that something was wrong and immediately turned off the computer. A few hours later, Arthur walked down the stairs with the drone in his hand. Brynja, can you explain a little bit? I could listen carefully to your quibbles. Arthur looked at Brynja with a smile. Captain, it's all Kiana's idea. Brynja simply pushed Kiana in front of Arthur. Looking at Arthur, who was close at hand, Kiana wanted to escape. But being the pride of the Kislana family does not allow her to be a deserter. So he stood in front of Arthur with an awe-inspiring attitude, and tilted his head. That's right, it's all Miss Ben's idea. If you want to kill or chop, listen to it. You're being honest, Kiana. Arthur smiled, a playful look in his eyes. That's nature, and noble qualities are the virtues of our Kislana family. Does that include voyeurism, too? This. For a moment, Kiana was a little speechless. Captain, I just got a piece of news, very important, that has been transmitted to your communicator. Just then, Brynja's voice came from the side. Arthur raised his left arm, and a light curtain ejected from the communicator. A newspaper occupies the entire screen, and the large headline above makes Arthur's eyes narrow. Eurozerogers pirates successfully circled the Great Voyage and became the king of the pirates. Euro. One Piece. Kiana tilted her head in confusion. One Piece is. Arthur explained to Kiana in the room on the second floor. At this moment, Fu Hua was like an ordinary person sprinting for 1,000 meters, his whole body was pink and shiny, and he was lying on the ground weakly and panting softly. Damn. Fu Hua struggled to stand up, but the strength of his whole body seemed to be drained. Even moving your fingers feels extremely difficult. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 174. Time flies by in the midst of slapstick. It wasn't until dinner was about to be eaten that Arthur, who was sitting on the couch and teasing Kiana, looked up at the stairs next to him. Fu Hua wore a small blue suit and a white coat and walked slowly down the stairs. Wearing a pair of black-rimmed glasses, he glared back viciously at Arthur's gaze. Kiana lay on the sofa, her eyes slightly closed like a kitten, enjoying the caresses of her master, and from time to time she made some very comfortable sounds. Huh, Fu Hua, you finally appeared. Seeing Fu Hua appear, Kiana's slightly narrowed eyes opened. But how do you wear boys' clothes? Seeing the small suit that Fu Hua was wearing, Kiana asked. Indeed, what the Glitz wears now is not feminine at all. Although the suit has a clean and neat feeling when worn on the body, it also hides its feminine charm. Compared to Blazing Ling, it is far worse. Isn't it a lot uglier now? Fu Hua said and looked down at himself, and spun around in front of Arthur. This was an idea that popped into Fu Hua as he lay on the ground. Dress yourself up neutrally, and you should avoid a lot of trouble. It's just that when Fu Hua wanted to take a look at Arthur's disappointed expression, he was suddenly stunned. What the hell are those eyes shining? Tut tut, not bad. Arthur got up from the couch and circled Fu Hua twice. The light emanating from that gaze made Fu Hua a little stunned. What's that expression? See me like this. Seeing you like this, I suddenly found myself even more excited. Arthur interrupted Fu Hua's words, looking covetous. The exaggerated expression on his face made Fu Hua shrink his neck. How so, are you? Fu Hua seemed to think of something, and his eyes widened. To be a man, you must welcome men. As your captain, it is incumbent on you to take the lead and set an example. Such righteous and awe-inspiring words really made Fu Hua not know what to say. I'm going to change my clothes. Fu Hua said and went upstairs as if he was running away. Seeing the glint in Arthur's eyes, if he continues like this, who knows what bad consequences will happen. Captain, you're so bad, you scared Fu Hua. Mei Yi walked over from the side with a grin. It's better to be scared, and honestly wearing sportswear looks better than the current suit, and it's so tightly wrapped. Hee, it turns out that the last sentence is what you really think in your heart, Captain. Mei Yi stood in front of Arthur with a smile. Haha, this has all been discovered, you are such a clever little ghost. Arthur said, tapping the tip of Mei's nose. Soon, dinner was ready, and when everyone was seated, Fu Hua also changed into his usual t-shirt and shorts. Captain, that Ralph Drew you mentioned earlier, shall we fly over directly? Ever since Arthur told about some of the great passages, Kiana was interested in the so-called final island. It's not impossible, I'll have a chance later. The sea should be very unquiet lately. Indeed, as Arthur said. The New World is now in turmoil. The Roger pirates arrived at Ralph Drew, and the first thing to react with was the world government. You know, Ralph Drew is buried with information that is quite unfavorable to their world government. The blank 100 years, the historical truth. The most important thing is the whereabouts of those 3 ancient weapons. Every ancient weapon can bring great turmoil to the world. The world government will never let such news go out. So, the Navy had something to do. Headquarters of the Navy. At this moment, the headquarters of the Navy has already built a prototype on the ruins. And at the same time, in an emergency conference room, red dogs, pheasants, yellow apes, caps, dolphins, peach rabbits, and cranes are all located among them. And right in front, Sengoku put on the costume of an admiral. I just got the news that someone once saw the crew of the Roger pirates in New World. All we have to do is arrest them. Roger, in particular, was at the top of his mind this time. The stern voice echoed around, showing the determination of this time. Through this meeting, countless navies frantically poured into the New World, looking for the members of the Roger pirates. At the same time, Arthur's Island welcomes a special guest. Roger. He is tall and wears a pirate hat with a red trench coat hanging from his shoulders on his back. When Luo Ming appeared in the port, for a moment, the people around him were boiling. Roger's name is now resounding through the sea. Not a single pirate did not know him. Luo, Roger, it's really Roger. In the silence of the port, an unbelievable voice was heard. For a moment, it was as if a spark had been thrown into a barrel of dynamite. Roger glanced around, ignoring the people around him, and strode towards the island. And in front of him, Arthur was already waiting there. "The wine is ready, would you like a drink?" Roger nodded, and the two of them went to the reception room. Everything is well arranged, hearty dishes, delicious drinks. It's as if we knew there were going to be guests. Cheers. The two sat opposite each other, raised the wine in their hands and drank it down. "Although we haven't seen each other much, I, Roger, have always longed for you." Roger stood up as he spoke, filling his glass. "I toast you." After saying that, drink it all. It's decided. There was no beginning or end to the words, but Roger seemed to know what Arthur wanted to say, and nodded vigorously. "Yes." Roger nodded and continued. "It was only when I arrived at Ralph Drew that I understood that the world government." Roger seems to want to tell everything he knows about Ralph Drew, but is interrupted by Arthur. "I'm not interested in anything like that." Roger's words came to an abrupt end, and he looked at Arthur opposite him and nodded with a wry smile. That's right. This time he visited Arthur, and Roger really wanted to tell him what he knew. In this world, he thinks that only Arthur will make the right choice after learning the truth about these things. But now, it seems, is no longer needed. After that, the two talked to each other as if they were at home. After a meal, he said goodbye and left. A few days later, when the afterglow of the news that Roger became the king of the pirates had not yet dissipated, an even more shocking news came out. Admiral Roger was arrested. News swept through the new world like the wind. It made the whole sea boil in an instant. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 175. On the Endless Sea. A huge sailboat moved forward slowly. Whitebeard stood on the deck reading the newspaper in his hand. The above is exactly what happened to be all the news about the arrest of the naval master Roger. When the news was announced, everyone was shocked. Completing the feat of circumnavigating the Great Voyage, reach the legendary island of Ralph Drew, and gain endless riches. Such a combination of wealth and honor, which is at the peak of his life, was suddenly arrested by the Navy. Everything was like a dream. Roger. Whitebeard muttered to himself, muttering the name. In the past, he had several encounters with the Roger pirates on the sea. Fight for the same wealth, or fight for the sake of fighting. It can be regarded as a relationship of friend and foe. It felt a little incredible to see Roger being captured by the Navy. During the adventure, he encountered countless navies who were not captured for pursuit and interception, and now he has just become the king of the pirates, and he was captured. Daddy, the navy that caught Roger on the sea is suddenly much less. Although these navies are traveling to the New World to capture Roger. But to a greater or lesser extent, it also had a certain impact on other forces in the New World. Now, except for Arthur, even if they are as strong as the Whitebeard pirates, there will be no needless battles when they see the Navy. Because there is no meaning, it will be targeted by the Navy, and the gains outweigh the losses. Alas! Whitebeard sighed softly, let go of his fingers, and the newspaper went away with the wind. And at the same time, on another island, a figure was walking down the street, and suddenly turned into a side alley. The gloomy alleys completely drowned out his figure. A few seconds later, a fleet of navies faded away. Walking out of the alley, the bright light made it possible to see his face under the cloak. Riley. Captain Roger. Riley also vividly remembers that when they left Ralph Drew, Roger directly secretly disbanded the pirates and told him that he would not die. As a result, such news was heard after some time. The others don't know where they went. Seeing the approaching navy in the distance, Riley dodged and headed in the other direction. The pirates disbanded, and the members of the ship dispersed from each other. Coupled with the navy's aggressive pursuit, I'm afraid they are all hiding. If you want to see each other again, I don't know what year and month it is. And at the same time, within the headquarters of the Navy, the previous gloom finally dissipated somewhat. The news of Roger's capture has once again boosted the prestige of their Navy, which can deter some of the youngsters. The next step is to choose where and when the execution will be carried out publicly. Everyone in the room was discussing, and Carp stood up and walked out on his own. Leaning on the doorpost outside, looking up at the white clouds in the sky, there was a sense of melancholy. In the chase with Roger, the two of them also established a certain relationship. That's the emotion that comes out. And now that Roger is about to be executed publicly, Carp is also a little reluctant. You're going to have a lot of quiet days going to be, Carp. A large hand patted Carp's shoulder, and Sengoku's figure appeared next to him. Previously, Carp's mission was to hunt down the Roger pirates. And now that the Roger pirates have been disbanded and Roger has been caught, Carp can naturally find some easy work. If it's really easy, that's good. Carp shook his head. Don't think I'm out there all the time and don't know anything. Just 2 days ago, the world government supported a batch of equipment for our Navy. I have also personally tested the power of that batch of equipment, and it can be said that it is very powerful. Although Carp has a big appearance, he will not leave anything that should be noticed. It doesn't matter if that batch of equipment is a little more powerful, the point is that it is too big. The combat power of the Navy has increased several times in an instant. Isn't it a good thing that the world government supports equipment? Why do you still have a solemn look? Sengoku shook his head and motioned for Carp not to worry. Look at this, meaning, there will definitely be a big move next. And now the Roger pirates can be said to exist in name only, and the only one that threatens the world government is the Arthur pirates. But now it can't be called the Arthur pirates, it's now the same as the world government. But these things don't have much to do with me as a lieutenant general. Carp said and stretched. I went to see an old friend and gave him a ride before I left. Seeing Carp leave, Sengoku also sighed slightly. For war on Arthur, it really wasn't what he wanted to see. But the decisions of the world government are not something he can influence. Even if he became a marshal, there were many powerless situations. Now, the warring states are really aware of it. And the mastermind behind all this is, of course, Otto. The Navy has such a huge manpower, how could Otto not use it? It's just that the equipment of the Navy is too backward in Otto's opinion, and it must be strengthened. That's when the world government gives the Navy equipment. And that's just the beginning. What Otto has to do is build an invincible army. And this is destined to be a relatively long process. But patience, Otto has always had. Time passed day by day, and the sea slowly returned to calm from the initial frenzy of the news of Roger's capture. But another piece of news made the sea, which was not yet completely calm, boil again. Public execution of Roger in Rogue Town. Rogue Town is where Roger was born. The purpose of Roger's public execution here is self-evident. Deter pirates and build up enough prestige for the Navy. Inside a private estate on Arthur's Isle. If you sit on the couch and look at the system interface in front of you. With the accumulation of this time, Fu Hua's character fragments are about to be gathered again. After 2 days, one trip to 10 companies is almost enough. And happily, Fu Hua's body finally gradually adapted under Arthur's teasing from time to time. Although he was reluctant, his body was still very honest and responded enthusiastically to Arthur's behavior. But Arthur never broke through to the last step. After all, an expression of resistance and enjoyment like Fu Hua is really tired of looking at it. For this, Arthur also has enough patience. Kiana, do you want to see the excitement? When he learned the time and place of Roger's public execution, Arthur said slowly. Of course, I thought about the captain, and I was a little stuffy in the room all the time. Although every day is very fulfilling, Kiana is still very happy if she can go out for a walk. Then without further ado, let's go. After a while, Hyperion broke through the air. Thanks for the reminder, it has been changed. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 176. Rogue Town. The location is near the entrance to the East China Sea, the great shipping route. Most of the pirates who enter the Great Voyage from the East China Sea will be resupplied in Rogue Town. So in general, the town is lively. And now, the town is even more lively than ever. There is only one reason. That is, One Piece Roger is going to be publicly executed here. As soon as the news broke, a large number of pirates poured into Rogue Town. This put a lot of pressure on the Navy stationed in the town of Rogue. Fortunately, the Navy headquarters had long anticipated the situation and immediately sent reinforcements. The current Rogue Town can be described as 5 steps and 1 post, and 10 steps and 1 sentry. Even with strict control, it still can't resist the influx of countless pirates. They want to witness the fall of a generation of One Piece with their own eyes. And in the midst of these crowds, Arthur and his party also quietly arrived. Wow, there are so many people here. Entering Rogue Town, Kiana's eyes widened as she swept around. It's normal to have a lot of people. Arthur looked at the sky. It may be a while before the public execution is carried out, so let's go in and talk about it. Around Arthur, an invisible force spread outward. In front of the place where he passed, a passage was automatically squeezed open. Truth be told, there's not much to visit in Rogue Town either. Especially now that there are a sea of people, at a glance, it is full of heads. It's just that in these crowds, Arthur found a few familiar figures. The men hid in the crowd and walked slowly towards the execution table in the central square. Boom! A dull bell echoed around. The noisy crowd gradually quieted down. On one roof, Arthur and his party could see the whole of the central square. The crowd below was still too crowded, so I found a great location. It's time to start. The whole central square was very consciously quiet, as if waiting for something. And the end of a passage maintained by the Navy. A figure gradually appeared. Although he was wearing chains, his body was straight, and his whole body had a momentum that spread outward. The navies escorting him on both sides looked like escorts. Gordie Roger. He is worthy of being called the man of One Piece. The countless eyes around him did not make Roger's expression change much. Stride with your head held high and look ahead. As if his front was not a table of executions that represented death. In the crowd, one after another looked at this man. Captain Roger. Shanks wore a straw hat on his head, trying to restrain himself from trying to rush out. There are countless navies around, if they act without authorization, there is only a dead end. Not far from Shanks, Bucky was also in the crowd, with a sad look on his face. As trainee crew members of the Roger Pirates, they have a deep bond with each other. Now, however, they could only watch as their captain walked step by step towards the execution table. A deep sense of powerlessness enveloped him. Everyone's eyes moved with Roger's figure, and finally reached the execution table in the center of the square. Looking at the steps leading to death in front of him, Roger did not stop at all, and stepped forward step by step. A dull sound of footsteps seemed to hit everyone's chest. Let the heart not tremble. Standing on the execution table, Roger sat cross-legged without any scruples. His gaze calmly scanned down. In the crowd, he saw Shanks and Bucky, who were trying to keep themselves from crying. "It's nice to see you two before we leave," Roger muttered to himself. "As for Riley, they probably won't be here." Suddenly, Roger seemed to feel something, and his eyes looked in a certain direction. On the eaves there, a group of people stood. Roger and Arthur's eyes met, calm without the slightest fluctuation. The two executors stood next to Roger, one on the left and one on the right, each holding a sharp long sword in their hands. The sun in the sky was getting hotter and hotter, and it was approaching noon. The executive officer on the side looked at the time and said loudly, "It's almost time, ready for execution." With an order, the executor behind Roger raised the long sword in his hand. The sharp sword shimmered with an icy glow in the sunlight. Suddenly, in the crowd below, a man shouted loudly, "Roger, where's your treasure? Where did you hide them all?" As soon as the sentence came out, the crowd below suddenly boiled. "Roger is the king of the pirates. Surely he has a lot of wealth. If you can get these." Many people's eyes glowed brightly, staring at Roger intently, waiting for his next answer. The corners of Roger's mouth hooked up into a smile, as if he was about to say something, which made the executive's face change, and he shouted loudly, "Don't say anything superfluous, execute immediately." Just as the executor behind him raised the long sword in his hand, Roger's hearty voice echoed throughout the square. "Do you want my treasure? I can give it to you if I want, go find it. I've got everything there." Burst. As soon as the words fell, two long swords passed through his chest. In an instant, the crowd below boiled, and countless people were swarming to find it. And on this day, the fate of many people also changed. Hawkeye my hawk turned away with his long knife on his back. Clockdale's eyes were fixed on Roger on the stage, not knowing what he was thinking. Moonlight Maria smiled and left with the flow of people. Monkey D. Dragon, shrouded in a cloak, also made a decision at this moment. As Roger said this, countless people rushed to the sea. It's about finding the treasure that Roger is talking about. A new era has begun. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 177. 3 days later. The heat of Roger's death has dropped a lot. Perhaps only some people will really take Roger to heart. The words before dying had a profound impact, and many people rushed out of the sea in search of the treasure that Roger had left behind. Once desire is unfettered, the effects are terrible. As pirates, they have no fixed source of income, and all they can do is plunder. And this, it undoubtedly adds a lot of pressure to the Navy. At present, the Navy is in ruins, and it will take a long time to recover. And now they have to send more men into the sea again. All in order not to let the pirates run wild. In a sea area, a warship moved forward slowly. Above deck, Carp stared ahead. "What am I talking about? Still want to rest? It's only been a few days since I was sent out again." After a grumbling, Carp took the telescope handed to him by the Navy next to him and looked forward. A pirate ship came into view. Every now and then, you come across a pirate ship. Do you really think pirates are so easy to behave? Carp finished and waved his hand. "Full speed ahead and push all the shells up." The slow-moving warship gradually increased in speed, and soon, the pirate ship ahead could be seen with the naked eye. At the same time, the pirates on the watchtower of the pirate ship shouted loudly below. The Navy was found. This sentence made the pirates on the deck instantly panic. They are just a group of pirates who have just been formed, and they are just going to sea for the so-called treasure. I didn't expect to run into the Navy just 2 days ago. No. Don't be afraid. As a captain, I'm still a little calmer at this time. The navy is also a ship, what is there to be afraid of? Push our cannons out. Pushing these navies back is our first step towards success. There is an abundance of wealth waiting for us. Hearing the captain's inspiring words, the little brothers next to him screamed even more. Soon a cannon was pushed out. This is also their only means of weaponry. Adjust the angle and aim. The next shot bodes well for our future glory. The captain yelled again and was about to ignite the fire. But whoosh! One after another sounds of breaking the sky came to the face. Carp grabbed one cannonball after another and smashed it straight at the pirate ship on the other side. In an instant, dozens of shells filled the sky. When the people on the pirate ship saw this scene, their eyes widened in horror. Boom boom boom. Explosions rang out, engulfing the pirate ship. Go down and salvage it, throw the living ones into prison, and leave the dead alone. Carp has no mercy for these pirates. Although these pirates are very weak, they are still dangerous to ordinary people. If they don't stop it now, they will be even more presumptuous as time goes by. Then there will be many more people because they have been hurt. Soon, the warship sailed away from this area and continued to sail forward. The eve of the age of the pirates was the most ferocious. Countless people flocked to the sea. As a navy, they must hold back this momentum. Even if you can't go back to the past, let everyone understand. Not everyone on the sea can do whatever they want. This time, the navy also put down all the work in hand and exerted all its strength. The aim is to crush the tide severely. The harder the front fights, the more honest the pirates will be. In another sea, the Pheasant, who is currently one of the 3 generals, rode his mount to a huge sailing ship. This sailing ship is dozens of times larger than the others. It was even more crowded with people. This is a message from the naval branch. They said that they had spotted a huge pirate ship in their waters and requested support from the Navy headquarters. So, the Pheasant was sent. Is that them? Want to get into the great voyage? There was not a trace of fluctuation in the Pheasant's gaze, and the progress stopped, and it stood on the ice. That's the 3 admirals of the Navy. On the sailboat, some people also found the figure of the Pheasant. Ice Age. An endless chill burst outward, instantly freezing the sea. The ice filled and surrounded the sailboat. Attack, attack. Above the sailboat, countless cannons were pushed out. Dense cannonballs shrouded towards the Pheasant. Boom boom. Artillery fire filled the air, enveloping the Pheasants. Seeing this scene, all the people on the pirate ship breathed a sigh of relief. Even the 3 admirals of the Navy cannot be safe in the face of such a powerful attack. That's the hierarchy gap. For these pirates, an attack that can kill people is no different from tickling for pheasants. In the midst of the smoke of gunpowder, a figure slowly walked out. The chill around it engulfed the huge sailing ship like the footsteps of death. A perfect ice sculpture that looks like a work of art appears in the middle of the sea. The Pheasant turned and left, and soon a warship came to clean up the mess. And on the other side of the island, dozens of pirates surround one person. It's really unlucky. I wanted to find a remote place to rest, but I didn't expect to run into you. The yellow ape plucked out his ears, his face full of reluctance. Hey, I said it's okay to turn yourself in, lest I do it. The yellow ape leaned down and looked at the person in front of him who looked like a head. Even if it's the Navy, it's just one person, don't be afraid, let's go together. Rush. Everyone rushed up with machetes, and the leader, he ran to the opposite place. Hey, what a bunch of idiots, help me buy some time. Gain time? Your subordinates are still a little bit behind. A voice sounded in his ears, and he looked to the side, only to see a yellow light flashing in front of him. Boom! The body flew out like a cannonball. And the pirates who surrounded the yellow ape before were already lying on the ground. General Polisalino, I'm sorry we're late. At that moment, a fleet of navies came running over and caught all the pirates. Ugh! The yellow ape sighed. He knew that his wish to be lazy would not come true. On the other side, Akainu, his handling method is much simpler and rude. The lava filled the air, and wherever it passed, the pirates were reduced to ashes. The current strength of these three generals has deservedly located at the apex of the sea. And after the thunderous means of the navy, the churning tide was finally suppressed by a large margin. But it is destined to be a protracted battle. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 178. Rumble. A laser cannon was fired from Hyperion, piercing a pirate ship directly ahead. A huge explosion rang out, and the flames burst into flames. Captain, this is the 8th pirate ship we've encountered today. Looking at the big screen in front of her, Kiana blinked, seeming a little helpless. If it is a stronger opponent, there is still value in fighting, but the key is that the strength of these pirates is pitifully weak. Even Kiana couldn't get the slightest interest. With the advent of the era of pirates, the number of pirates has increased a lot, which is normal. Arthur whispered disapprovingly. It was already their 5th day out of Rogue Town. Naturally, the way back will not be as hurried as before. Hyperion drove through the sea, admiring the scenery along the way and slowly returning. Besides, it's really boring to be on the island all the time. In the past few days, Arthur has really felt the change. Countless people flocked to the sea to enter the Great Passage. But alas, the dangers of the Great Voyage are unknown to them. If nothing else, some sea kings alone are not something that these ordinary people can resist. There are even fewer ships that can enter the Great Seaway. And they will understand when they enter the Great Voyage. The nightmare has just begun. By the way, where did Fu Hua go? Since 2 days ago, Arthur gathered Fu Hua's character fragments, promoted them to SS rank, and unlocked the Yunmo Dangzhen. Later, I found that Fu Hua was always elusive. Captain, if Fu Hua is concerned, she is on deck right now. The large screen in front of him changed, showing the scene on the Hugh Blian deck. A figure stood on the deck with his hands in his hands, his body ethereal like that of an immortal. Looking at Fu Hua now, I don't feel like a person from the world. Kiana put her hands on her cheeks and looked at Fu Hua on the screen. I'll take a look. Arthur turned and walked out, and in a moment he was on deck. Are you enjoying the scenery? Arthur stood next to Fu Hua. At this time, Fu Hua gave him a very quiet feeling. Looking up at the front, the indifference in his eyes seemed to see through everything in the world. Not sad or happy. Captain, I don't know if you feel that this world is a little different. Fu Hua raised his right hand, as if feeling something. Faint words floated out of her mouth, as soft as the wind. Seeing that Fu Hua was not eating the fireworks in the world at the moment, Arthur was really a little uncomfortable. Stretching out his hands, he broke Fu Hua's body over, and the two faced each other. Captain, what do you do? Seeing Arthur's actions, Fu Hua was a little surprised. I want to see if you have really become an immortal and do not move your mortal heart. Arthur said as he took a step forward and grabbed Fu Hua's waist. The four eyes face each other, gradually getting closer. It can be seen that there was a hint of panic in Fu Hua's plain eyes. Looking at the face that was getting closer and closer, the calm face also changed slightly. Finally, Fu Hua pushed hard, took a few steps back, and covered his chest and gasped gently. It seems that it is still in the mortal world, so I can rest assured. Seeing Fu Hua's appearance, Arthur smiled. Captain, you. In front of the public, you can't do this nonsense in the future. Fu Hua glared at Arthur angrily. Oh, isn't that okay in public? Yes, yes. Arthur nodded happily, which made Fu Hua on the other side angry. Obviously she didn't mean that. Why do you always misinterpret what she says? Captain, don't always misinterpret me. Haha, I suddenly found out that Fu Hua is quite good looking when you get angry. You. Fu Hua was really speechless, and turned around angrily to look aside. Like an immortal, the character of not eating fireworks in the world was broken in an instant. Captain, the shadow of a sailboat is spotted in front of you on your left, and it seems to need help. Inside the communicator, AI's voice came out. When I looked around, I saw a small black dot floating on the sea. Inside a small sailboat lay a man, who seemed to be in a coma, motionless. Wow! At that moment, the waves were raging next to the sailboat, and a sea king broke through the water and bit downward. In the face of this huge sea king, the people on the sailboat probably didn't even have enough to stuff their teeth. There is danger. Fu Hua's eyes froze, his body jumped up, and he stepped away on the waves. The distance had already arrived in an instant, and a punch hit the head of the sea king. Rumble. The waves rose into the sky and scattered behind the sea kings. The huge sea king slowly slid into the sea. Fu Hua stood at the edge of the boat, and only then could he see the unconscious person inside. It was a woman who looked 25 or 16, dressed in a black evening dress like a noble lady. I just don't understand why such a person would be adrift alone in the sea. Fu Hua wanted to get this woman up, and at this time, Arthur on the side also came over at this time. Wait a minute, Fu Hua. Hearing Arthur's words, Fu Hua's movements stopped and he raised his head in confusion. Don't pretend, get up. Faint words came out of Arthur's mouth, and his brow furrowed slightly. Although the woman in front of him was meeting for the first time, he had some impressions. Stutzi. One of the leaders of the Dark World, the Queen of Happy Street, whose real identity is a member of CP0. The fact that such a person appears here speaks volumes in itself. Stussy lay in the center of the sailboat, and was slightly shocked to see Fu Hua so easily repelling the Sea Kings. These people are indeed as the intelligence says, and each of them is extremely powerful. But as long as she can get inside, with her own ingenuity, she will definitely be able to get what she wants. But I didn't expect that when everything was going well. Arthur suddenly appeared. The first sentence made Stussy almost scream. Is it revealing a flaw, shouldn't it? His acting skills are so perfect. If she wants to continue to pretend to be Stussy, Arthur won't give her such a chance. Stussy, a member of the world government CP0. Do you want me to throw you directly into the sea to feed the fish? As soon as he said this, Stussy knew that he had been exposed. I sat up slowly with endless doubts in my heart. Stand up straight, there is still a trace of weakness on your face. How do you know my true identity? The identity of the world government is absolutely secret, and not many people know about it. Tell me about the purpose of this visit. Arthur didn't answer her, but asked with a frown. In addition to meeting you, a fascinating man, I will send you a valuable piece of information as a token of goodwill. Stussy said with a smile on her face and tried to get closer to Arthur, but a cold gaze next to her made her stop in place. Fu Hua stood at the bow of the boat, his eyes narrowing slightly. The people who want to save come with ulterior motives, how can Fu Hua's mood be so good? Let's talk about it, if the value is good, I'll let you go. It's about a visitor. Stussy said, pulling out a piece of paper from his bosom and handing it to Arthur. This is a backup means. If you can't break into the interior, you can only fight for the best interests. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 179. On the deck of Hugh Bryan, he watched the back of Stussy drifting away in a small boat. Arthur picked up the information in his hand. Captain, what's written on it? Kiana leaned over curiously. I really didn't expect that Otto would target animal-based devil fruit abilities. Animals infected with Honkai can turn into Honkaimon. Ordinary animals can turn into powerful Honkai beasts, not to mention animal-based devil fruit abilities. It's Otto, it's a strange idea. A glint flashed in Arthur's eyes. Otto's situation really has to be completely solved, otherwise it will always be a hidden danger. And when it comes to animal-based devil fruit abilities, Arthur is the first person who comes to mind is Kaido. I'm sure they'll see each other again soon. Captain, in this case, the strength of the Honkai beast will definitely become very terrifying. Should we prepare in advance? Rita frowned worriedly. The strength of the devil fruit ability itself is very strong, and once it is contaminated with Honkai, no one can say how far its strength will increase. Prepare in advance? That's not necessary. In order to do it once and for all, it is necessary to find the location where Otto's other clones are hiding, and then destroy them in one fell swoop. The last time I killed was nothing more than a clone of Otto. And Arthur believed that Otto's other doppelgangers must be somewhere in this world, but it couldn't be Mary Joa. It's too dangerous after all. Otto's cautious character must have been placed where he thought it was safe. Ai-chan, Brnya, this task is up to you. Use our surveillance network to look carefully. At this time, Arthur's previous satellites in the sky will play a huge role. Understood, Captain. Brnya received. Ai and Brenya's voices were conveyed at the same time. Don't be in such a hurry, just take your time. Looking at today's events, it seems that there is no monolith between the world government and Otto. A smile tugged at Arthur's lips. I don't know what Otto did to let the world government stab him in the back. But these Arthurs didn't bother to pay attention. Let's go, continue to sail back. Arthur has nothing to do here to fight monsters, and from time to time he discusses the origin of life with May and them, and his life is quite stable and happy. But at the same time, on the other side, inside Fishman Island, Fisher Tiger walked out of Ryago Castle and looked up with anger. For a long time, there has been tension between the human beings, who are ruled by the world government, and the fish people and mermaids of Fishman Island. Due to the lack of understanding of each other, humans discriminate against the mermaids, and the discriminatory attitude of the world government, the holder of human power, is particularly strong. As the nobles of the world, the Draco have been buying slaves of various races, including fishmen, through human traffickers. Fisher Tiger was captured as a slave shortly after his last trip began, and was tortured in captivity, showing full insight into human madness. And not so long ago finally escaped. Tiger, who was ravaged by slavery, decided to make trouble in the holy land of Marijoya and free all slaves. Nothing will affect my decision. Fisher Tiger's gaze was full of determination, and he strode away. And inside Ryago Castle, Princess Otohime, who was born with a domineering personality, let out a huge sorrow when she heard the voice in Tiger's heart. But she didn't know how to resolve such pain. Perhaps only the day when humans and merfolk are allowed to live in peace will such incidents not happen again. Late at night, quietly, a figure broke through the sea and crawled towards the very top of the Red Earth continent. The holy land of Marijoya is located at the very top of the Red Continent, while Fishman Island is at the bottom. This has to be said to be a kind of irony. Without the help of any tools, Fisher Tiger slowly climbed upward step by grasping the bulging rock. The night wind was bitterly cold, and the rocks clutched were more like knives. Fisher Tiger looked up and saw no end in sight. The figure did not pause, and continued to rise step by step. Time seems to have lost its meaning under such insistence. Only the sharpness in his eyes represents his determination at this moment. Wait for me, come and save you right away. This time, Fisher Tiger came not only to free the slaves, but also to save his countrymen. A few days earlier, his people had been sold into slavery to the world government. Fisher Tiger, who knows what it's like to be a slave, can't sit idly by. That's where this action comes in. After several hours of climbing, even the mermaid's strong physical strength was a little unbearable. But finally, the end above has been seen. Fisher Tiger is crawling faster and faster. Finally came to the top. In the darkness of the night, he was like a ghost in the darkness that hovered within Mary Joy. Looking at everything familiar and unfamiliar around him, Fisher Tiger's heart was full of emotion. Escaping Mary Joy was just a quick escape, and now here she is again. Hiding in a dark corner and watching the guards walking in front of him, Fisher Tiger had a plan. In order to save people, these soldiers must be lured away. Fisher Tiger, who had a clear purpose, had planned everything long ago. The figure was completely submerged in the darkness and disappeared. 10 minutes later, a little fire flashed in Mary Joy. Like a light in the midst of this darkness. Fisher Tiger ran around, throwing his torches aside. Suddenly, a raging fire broke out. "It's on fire, put out the fire. Water, bring it over." Countless chaotic sounds rang out, and the surrounding soldiers ran to the places where the fires were set to extinguish them. And at this time, Fisher Tiger quietly touched the dungeon. Everything was just as he had guessed. All the guards have been removed. For Fisher Tiger, who has lived here for 3 years, everything around him is familiar. Soon found the place where his compatriots were being held. "Tiger, is that you? I didn't expect you to be caught by them again." The fishman in the dungeon who was chained thought that Fisher Tiger had also been caught, and couldn't help but show sadness. "Don't cry, I'm here to save you." Without saying a word, Fisher Tiger took the key to open the cell door and untie the chains. "Tiger, you're really here to save us." The facts are in front of them, and there is no room for them not to believe it. The joy of regaining one's freedom brought tears of joy to Death. "Get out of this place, I don't want to stay here any longer." "Don't worry, we'll release all the slaves here." On this night, the most serious event in the history of the Holy Land of Mary Joy took place. And Fisher Tiger, the mastermind, is also wanted by the world government. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 180. Inside Mermaid Island. Word has come that Fisher Tiger burned Mary Joy. Dare to confront the world government, and at the same time save many of his compatriots, so that all the fishmen regard Fisher Tiger as a hero. But now Fisher Tiger is wanted by the world government, and in order not to bring the disaster to Mermaid Island, he resolutely plans to become a pirate. And at the same time, in the Fishman's Street. Have you heard? The world government has ventilated Tiger with a bounty of more than 200 million Baileys. Now it's all spread all over the place. It's really amazing. It actually broke into the Holy Land of Mary Joy. It's just a pity that after being wanted, you have to face the pursuit of the Navy. Similar rhetoric is now everywhere. Between the words there is a lot of admiration and worry for Fisher Tiger. And in the midst of these crowds, several fishermen glanced at each other and headed in the other direction together. Now that Tiger is alone, he has to face not only the pursuit of the Navy, but also those human pirates, which is too dangerous. That's right. Jinping nodded and continued. This is the first fishman who dares to rebel against the world government, and he is our compatriot, and we cannot save him without saving him. Firm words seem to represent Jinping's determination at this moment. What do you think? Jinping said, looking at the people around him one by one. Follow Tiger and live and die together. Aaron the Sawtooth Shark Man stepped forward and shouted. Follow Tiger and live and die together. Everyone else nodded at the same time, and the goal was agreed at this moment. The group immediately left Mermaid Island and set out to sea to find Fisher Tiger. A few days later, when they tracked down Fisher Tiger's tracks. The sailing ship is under siege by pirates. In the middle of the sea, the fish people have a natural advantage. Seeing this scene, Jinping did not hesitate and immediately launched an attack. The heart of the water and the sea flow over the shoulder. With an over-the-shoulder fall similar to judo, the sea water is thrown out like a human and causes a large wave. The waves drown the surrounding swarm of pirate ships, and they successfully joined Fisher Tiger. "Why are you here?" Fisher Tiger was surprised to see Jinping. "We are here to follow you, to live and die together." Jinping patted his chest and expressed his determination. "Good." At this moment, Fisher Tiger will not say anything to refuse, and it is very happy to let everyone join in. On top of the big boat, many fish people gathered together, and they were all familiar with each other. "Your mark. These humans are just so hateful. As long as they are captured as slaves, they will leave a heavenly dragon's hoof seal on their body, which symbolizes shame and enslavement." Although the person was rescued from Maryjoy, the marks on his body could not be erased. A solution to this has been thought of. In order to make the freed slaves indistinguishable from the other members, a sun mark similar to the wyvern's hoof was designed, and the sun mark was tattooed on the freed fishman slaves and the new members who later joined the pirates. In this way, there will be no difference between everyone. After that, the name of our pirate group will be called the Sun Pirates. The sun represents liberation and freedom. On this day, the Sun Pirates were officially established. They roam the great seas and fight against pursuing navies and human pirates who seek to defeat them. But such a thing is only a small tip of the world at large. Something that really changed the fate of Mermaid Island is quietly happening. In the royal palace of Mermaid Island, a mermaid who looks young is laughing and playing. She has long flowing pink curls and wears a taiyaki hair ornament on her head. He wears a pair of shell-shaped earrings, bright blue eyes, a beautiful face, a plump upper circumference, and a pink fishtail with dark shades on the lower body. He is none other than the youngest daughter of King Neptune of the Dragon Palace Kingdom, named Shirahoshi. "Ha ha ha, you can't catch up with me." Shirahoshi's beautiful tail swayed slightly, and his body rushed out of the way. When he was a child, Shirahoshi was lively and cute, innocent and romantic. "Shirahoshi, don't run so fast." Behind him, Shirahoshi's elder brother Sharkstar also quickened his pace at the same time, and the two chased each other, bursts of laughter echoing around. At the gate of Ryago Castle, Shirahoshi's mother, Otohime, watched this scene with a smile. Otohime is petite, with long, wavy blonde hair, blue eyes, orange hair accessories, and a long robe with fish scales. With a gentle personality, she advocates coexistence with humans. In order to get closer to and understand human beings, we are also promoting the signing of the agreement for the residents of Fishman Island to move to the mainland, and are preparing to announce their appeal for relocation to the mainland at the World Conference. As an example of coexistence with humans, in addition to leading the soldiers to save the people on the shipwrecked ship, he also taught the children of Fishman Island about the land. And everything she did was so that the merfolk could walk on the land openly. This is the belief of Otohime all her life, and she has been working hard for it. "Mother." Perhaps tired from playing, Shirahoshi threw himself into Otohime's arms. The very young Shirahoshi is already much older than Otohime. "Slow down." Otohime still gently wiped the snot that came out of Shirahoshi. Just then, Neptune walked out of the Dragon Palace. "Father." Seeing Neptune, Shirahoshi smiled brightly. "Ha ha ha, Shirahoshi, father has a gift for you." "What gifts?" Hearing the gift, Shirahoshi's eyes lit up instantly. "This is it." Neptune handed a box in his hand to Shirahoshi. Gently opened, the box contained the communicator that Arthur had given to Neptune when he came to Mermaid Island. "What is this?" Shirahoshi stared curiously at the communicator. "I don't know about this, anyway, you can bring it to your arm first." When Arthur drove the Sea Kings away, he gave the communicator to Shirahoshi. Naturally, Neptune won't forget. Oh. Shirahoshi took the communicator and put it on his arm and slowly fiddled with it, but there was no response. Shirahoshi, come here. After fiddling with it for a long time, she didn't see anything interesting, and then she heard another brother Huangxing calling her, and immediately swam over. After a day of playing, Shirahoshi returned to his room and was about to sleep. The communicator on his arm suddenly glowed, and a light curtain ejected from the communicator.